Joining us with more on Biden's economic agenda, Wendy Edelberg, a Brookings Institution Economic Studies Senior Fellow and Director of the Hamilton Project, and former CBO Director Douglas Holtz-Eakin. He's president of the American Action Forum, and it's like a discussion or a debate that we're never going to settle, I don't think, Wendy. Top up, bottom down, trickle down, cutting the pie more fairly. You're going to take, we were hoping, the Biden administration side, but even you have some problems that manufacturing may not be necessarily the most effective way to move forward, since a lot of the jobs and a lot of our future is going to be service-based, and that maybe some of these things don't help that as much.
Yeah, absolutely. There's many aspects of Biden's proposals that I fully support. I mean, the Hamilton Project has published scores of policy proposals supporting this agenda. Investing in green energy, critical technology, infrastructure, broadband access. We've published proposals on worker training, apprenticeships, supporting unionization, getting rid of non-competes, promoting entrepreneurship. But also, let me say, his remarks emphasized a priority to help communities in poverty and strengthen the social insurance system. And there, too, we have policy proposals on both fronts. However, the point you mentioned is a really important one. I worry that there was too little focus on the service sector in favor of manufacturing. We have a very large service sector, and federal policy could do a lot to make those jobs higher productivity and better paying.
When we keep hearing the word investment, Wendy, and there have been times in the past when the government has been, after World War II, where it's just been instrumental in actually generating prosperity and helping the economy. But I think, bottom line is the private sector generates growth and generates wealth and deploys capital more effectively. So whenever you want to raise taxes, let the government sort of figure out what our future economy looks like, there are going to be critics that say that's not the way to do it. And I'm just wondering, so far, what would the president or the administration say? What growth policies would they say have generated this economy right now? I can't think of a single growth policy that we've seen other than Keynesian tax and spend.
I think you have the wrong time frame in mind. So when we think about the positive economic effects of federal investment, those are very long-term gains, and in part because the federal government should have a far longer planning horizon than many private sector firms will have. And so the federal government is really well situated to invest in projects that are going to pay off over the very long term. We can talk separately about the most efficient way to pay for those projects, but we have oodles of research showing that federal investment can have very significant positive returns, both in terms of increasing productivity and also pulling in private investment that complements that federal investment.
Yeah. Doug, if both sides didn't have valid points, I guess there'd be no debate. But eventually, everybody, both sides, liberals talk about growth too. Growth solves everything, and what we argue about is the best way to get economic growth. And I guess the side you're representing today thinks maybe less regulation and lower taxes. It's not trickle down. It's like the only way really to make the pie become larger, and then you're able to split it up better because you need a strong economy to generate the tax revenues to do all these things that Wendy wants to do.
Well, on the philosophy point, I think the key is that we have a track record of private sector growth in the United States, and this administration does not believe the private sector generates growth. All policies run through Washington. All growth is going to come from Washington. I just think it's just mistaken, and so they're not going to succeed. Their record's not good. They inherited an economy that was growing at 6.3%. It's growing at 1.3% now, and most people are worried about a recession. They inherited an economy with inflation of 1.5%. Now food, energy, and shelter are going up at 5.5% every year. So, you can't defend the record. The record's not good. And as far as Wendy's point about the investments, the thing the president points to the most is this bipartisan infrastructure law. That's a growth nothing burger. The CBO took a look at those kinds of programs, $500 billion of new infrastructure spending, and said, if it's paid for by cutting transfer programs, maybe over 10 years you'll raise productivity by 6%. If you don't do it that way and deficit finance it, you'll get nothing. You'll get a short-run burst and it'll go away. What they actually did is closer to deficit finance, about half deficit finance. So that's going to get you maybe 2 or 3% increase in productivity over 10 years. Tenths of a percent per year, you're never even going to notice. And so their signature accomplishment, and the thing they're claiming is smart, is taking money from private sector investment and sticking into the public sector where the CBO thinks is half as effective. So it's just hard to support either the concepts or the record.
Wendy, you want to respond to that?
I would love to. Biden did not come up with the idea himself that federal investment for decades was lagging in critical areas, and president after president was trying to get it done. And this should be celebrated that we have we now have policies in place to make up for years and years of shortage of federal investment. Again, I am delighted to talk about the best way to pay for these things. The Hamilton Project has a handful of really well-researched proposals for the most efficient way to raise taxes to get more revenue. But the idea that federal investment does not support economic growth, it's not an essential part of the ecosystem of our very large economy. I just don't see that. I don't see that in the empirical evidence.
So I never said federal investment wasn't important. I think what you've pointed out is the chronic lack of funds for federal investment programs. There's a reason for that. It's because mandatory spending has crowded out the annual discretionary spending, where all of the basic research, infrastructure, education, national security is financed. Which president has said we're not going to touch the mandatory spending? President Biden. Which president has proposed even more mandatory spending, $5 trillion, than any other president? President Biden. So if you want to be serious about federal investments, take on the reforms necessary to free up the funds to do them.
All right. We're going to end it even earlier than that, but I'm sorry, Wendy. Doug's going to have the last word, but we'll hopefully do it again. We're the adversaries here, Wendy. I don't know. My head never wants to explode when I listen to you, and that's usually what happens here. I always find myself nodding. She's got a good point. So, and you too, Doug. But in your case, you're kind of preaching to the choir.
Wait. I just want to confirm. You thought I had good points this time too, right?
I missed that. Someone was in my ear. What was that, Wendy?
I just want to confirm you thought I had good points this time as well, right?
Always. That's why we have you. And I'm a hard sell. So I appreciate what you do, Wendy. Thanks. Coming up, the U.S. considering new